Hi, everybody. All right, we're going to talk about, well, in 20 minutes of what I tried to originally plan for an hour, we are going to talk about building enrichment, good detection, and how to make the lives of SecOps people suck just a little bit less, knowing that you're on the front end of a fire hose a lot of the time. As he diligently put, I've done a couple things. I build and run security operations teams for startups and tech companies. So, yeah. Anyways, so let's talk about a recap of what detection response is. I hope I made a terrible choice in colors. Let's hope that works, because there's a lot of blue in this deck. Anyways, so detection is really, it's about the indicator, the event, something taking place, detection of something, actually spotting it, then some poor soul on the other end having to actually act that, and then they get to go and try to solve the problem, whatever that might be. But in reality, this is a little bit more complicated than this, going from the indicators to detections, where hopefully you spot something, someone goes and acts, there's a triage, someone responds, and then hopefully something gets mitigated. Then this is where the reality really sets in, right? We have SecOps teams that just have so much they have to go through that there's just a mess of things that happen. And a lot of times that hopeful is unfortunately the case of just how big your property you're watching, how good your tech is, how good the people you have working on this stuff, and there's just a big mess of it. And so why is that the case? This starts everything from events not being written to logs just being a little too ambiguous. We have detections where there's rule quality. You didn't write a rule for something. You didn't turn something on properly. There's not enough logs actually coming in the first place. With Axe, you have just can't send stuff. Your team's burnt out. You have priorities. It's Thursday. And just a lot of other challenges you run straight through the board. And there's a lot of common themes, particularly with the triage and response of just how to act, what it means to triage, and even just going through the process. And then at the end, you're just hoping you actually stop the problem at all. That's true a lot of the time. So let's go and talk about what detection theory, and this is the big focus. We'll be looking at detection and how to keep an eye on things, how to act when you actually see something, and how to respond, or if you can respond at all. And so what is detection? It's obviously, let's detect something. Super. When you really look at detection, it's about piecing together all these indicators. You hear IOCs, IOAs, indicators of attack, indicators of compromise. But what are those really things? This doesn't mean much still, because what the hell is an indicator? When you look at indicators, and this intentionally you shouldn't be able to read, it really doesn't matter, I'll zoom in on this later, it's just a blob of text, and that was really the intent. This is a single event. This is Bob blah blah, and he'll come up a lot in my talk because Arrested Development. It doesn't mean anything from one line of text, right? This actually is one Okta alert that he successfully logged into a system. But when you actually look at the preceding events leading up to this, you see the fact that there was 4 failed logins before that first one. And then the device that actually hit it wasn't part of Okta Verify, didn't have Intune set up, didn't have any type of validation that was actually his device. And the IP it was coming from was actually pretty sketchy in the first place. But you saw the one successful login, so everything is fine, right? Because he authed. Cool. And this is the same thing when you look at beaconing. Everything looks pretty copacetic here, but then when you look at the beaconing problem, there's that reoccurring event that's going off to a C2 host or any other kind of questionable activity that could be happening there. So let's go back to what is detection. And this is going and looking at that needle in a stack of needles of various value. And this is because it depends on who's it coming from. Maybe this executive decides that they didn't actually want to use MFA and they didn't want to have to log into Intune or doing those things, so we've had to build some sort of special boundary around them. The quality of the alerts that are actually coming in, because, and this has come up on occasion, where when you try to convince devs to actually write a log for an event that's taking place, they kind of half-assed it. or just skip the thing to actually write the log in the first place so you never actually know that an event happens. Or in the extreme unlikely case, because I think the thing that came up a lot in the network talk yesterday was the vast majority of the time it is actually just stupidity and it isn't a well-funded bad actor that's coming at you. These things do happen. And so let's go look at when you have all of this data about like the logs, building detections, and actually getting to the point of understanding what it is you're trying to do with alerting or what is alerting. What's the point? So first, it tells you of an event that was detected. So here's Bob Loblaw again. He decided to go and try to grab a super secret from AWS, from a host in AWS. This is a bit of a summary of the findings of what's been there. Really not super meaningful. And you make sure you make a record of it because some auditor's going to want to know what's there, and you also want to show that you've managed to accomplish something in the past couple of weeks. But what are we really trying to accomplish when you're looking at alerting? You're trying to catch bad things because you want to stop bad things from happening. And you want to be able to do this quickly because, well, the longer someone's in your system or someone's keeping an eye on things or doing some bad stuff, well, things go pretty bad. And try to stop them as quick as they can before they blow up, even worse than they probably already have. And so we have to try to accomplish all of those things while not just getting the funnel and fire hose of bizarre false positive and meaningless noise that is when you're creating a detection and response system of trying to consume as much material as possible and trying to weed out the necessary things to write rules and detections and get something out there without completely burning out your SecOps teams. And also having so little information that even if you think and you are really great at the sniff test, that you see this alert and it means absolutely nothing to you. How do you fix this? How do you make this a little better? And so when we look back at the original tremendous blue slide I made, this is the things we really want to try to improve. It's the detection, the ability to acknowledge, the ability to triage, and the ability to respond quickly. And so let's talk about enrichment. So we're going to run through a scenario of, and I hope and I realize that I might live in a small bubble where I'm going to talk entirely about AWS, GitHub, and a few other things, because this is completely not on-prem in any way. We're going to talk about an AWS account. This is blah blah's blog in production. And the SOP method in which they make any changes inside of this environment is using GitHub Actions. This implies good PRs, peer reviews, things that happen on GitHub most of the time. And this is go through GitHub Actions to Terraform to roll out to production. And the emergency make the break glass for terrible things happening is that there's a backup account called, I put this before I even thought I had to pronounce it, Wallballbob. And at 3 a.m. you get paged because this wonderful, wonderful user account decided to go rewrite a buckets policy in prod. Well, shit. And so we're now here that someone has just hit ACK on PagerDuty or OpsGenie or whatever it is you're going to play with. And we're now barreling towards actually trying to triage this thing. And this is all that you got. You're like, what the hell does that mean? This, in this case, is actually a put bucket policy, like CloudTrail log, where people can't read, but you'll see this better in a second. Because what it is this is we're now doing a triage. This is this poor soul who got woken up at 3 a.m. to try to figure out what the hell this user account is doing or what's happened. And you can see here is that, like, first, like, is this actually Bob's IP? Like, it's a 172.1.6, but I just threw something in there because I didn't want to actually attribute it to anything. And then, like, what's he doing up at 3 a.m.? Why is he using this emergency account? And you just sort of pick through what else is going on here. And you also have to remember, time's ticking. Because, well, like, that bucket policy could be really heinous. And what else does this imply if someone's making a bucket policy of that bad? Let's segue to mean time to mitigate. Is anyone familiar with actually trying to track and run a platform doing mean time to mitigate, or what this means? All right, I got one hand. So mean time to mitigate is the idea that, so many bad colors.
Yeah, this one's great.
Yeah, sorry. You'll see the slides afterwards. I'll maybe change the colors. This is the idea of trying to get from detection, act, triage, response, and actually mitigate a problem in as little time as possible. And what you're representing is over time, trying to get that time down as much as you can. Because the longer that something is running in prod, some bad things happening in prod, that exfil is taking a little longer. That compromise is just a little bit there. They're a little bit more access to go play in your environment and do whatever it is that they're doing with that. And so the goal in a lot of our world, as you progress to trying to build metrics and operationalize a SecOps team, is talk about mean time to mitigate. And so the first section of this is about the detections and acknowledgement. And this is really about the accuracy of detection rules, the effectiveness of determining an initial severity, and if and when to page that on-call person. And it's really the ability to figure out just how bad it is without having to put human eyes on it. The next side of it is about going from the ability to act, triage, and respond as quickly as freaking possible so you can go and start dealing with this stuff. And this means being able to produce something that's verbose, meaningful, and have that data right in front of you right away, and easy to read and comprehend, because it's 3 a.m. Who knows what that on-call person's been doing the rest of the night? You don't want that to suck anymore. And you want to be able to anticipate what the first steps of response are going to be so that they can go and jump on this right away. The way, and I picked this up from an old mentor I had when I was inside of Microsoft, of the premise of answer before asked, is anticipate what the kind of questions that are going to come up, try to solve those things first. Try to get that information in front of you, try to act on it right away, and try to automate it, because it's 3 a.m. You don't have to go bug someone else to go deal with this crap. And last, it's being able to understand what the common mitigation practices are, understanding what kind of data is required to actually decide the direction to go, because you get that really ambiguous page. There's 1,000 different places you can go with, and it takes senior staff, principal level engineers to go deal with this stuff. You just feel bad if it's a outsourced SOC analyst who's trying to figure out what the hell any of this means if he didn't write it down. And that's again providing easy access to run books and tooling to make these lives a little bit quicker. So, how do we make this work? How do we make this entire premise of simplifying and improving this alerting process just a little bit better? So the tools I'm going to be representing today, Panther Labs, a fantastic SIM, Tines, which is, let's call it low-code, no-code automation. I hate the buzzwords, but it's how it is. And Mattermost, who I'm currently employed by. I do not represent Panther or Tines in any way. There's great groups of people, and I highly recommend the platforms. Panther is detection as code. This is a super basic rule that would have picked up the event that of Bob going and changing this event, or changing this bucket policy. And so what's happening here, and I'm glad these colors work, is that we have the detection rule itself, and this is, we have the detection rule itself, and this is really just super basic Python of what's actually taking place. We have the customizable event output, and this will become really valuable in the next section we're going to talk about, is being able to, when you push this data out to an event pipeline, or if you want to post this to Slack or to Mattermost, or send it to email or PagerDuty, wherever it is, this is the body of whatever that message is going to be, so they have some meaningful level of data or something to start off with. And then we have the baseline severity of just what is the dumbest means possible of trying to consider how bad something might be at a time. This is all actually basically open source. You can go look at Panther's public rules on GitHub. And so when we go back to looking at this triage of it's actually Bob's IP, whether it's doing at 3 a.m., why is he using the emergency account, this all comes together when we start playing with the output here. We look at the customizable event output of the source IP, the bucket name, the user ARN, the time, and whatever AWS account this was playing in. We now go look at Tines. And I'm going to mock this up. For anyone who plays with Tines, they're going to realize that there's obviously some gaps in what I've made here, because my original intent was this was going to be an hour long, and I'm now 14 minutes into a 25-minute presentation. And so what we are seeing here in Tines is basically, like I said, low code, no code, drag and drop story-driven automation that's infinitely customizable and tremendously addictive. Because once you recognize just how much control and stuff you can play with this, you're going to want to glue this crap into everything. And we've built IT orgs with this stuff, and it's very entertaining. Anyways, so what Tines is doing is Tines is taking that input, that context that was coming from Panther, and it was coming in and it was going to parse that data. And then what it's going to do here is that we now have it going and getting the user's device information and the IP information. And this is, we're going to go hit Intune, we're going to go hit Jamf, we're going to go hit some, whatever endpoint platform you're using to maintain your devices for your company. And then it's also going to go find out a good reputable source of what that user's IP was to be. Like if you're using Okta or if you're using Intune or Enter ID, they will have a different location where they've been able to verify an IP address and authentication source as opposed to just AWS. So this is being able to go reach out and get that information. And then the next piece you see is the comparison of the IPs, comparing the device information that you're seeing to actually get a validation of whether that IP that you have is actually that user's IP or if this is something completely vague. The other one is that you go check IP reputation, you go use something like Gray Noise, a great platform. Ron's not paying attention. Do you want to see whether if that IP isn't actually his IP, is it a bad rep? Just get a bit more context of what that IP is. And then because it's 3 a.m., like have it go check on call. Is Bob actually on call? Maybe there's a rhyme or reason for him actually being up at 3 a.m. and doing this work. Is he on call? Is there an active event in pager duty? There's a lot of options to go do this. And then there's the delivery of this information. And so this is actually bringing this all together, doing a lot of the meat, and I'll talk about the assemble context in a moment. But then this is the ability to go open Jira tickets, post this to an alert channel in Slack or Mattermost or Teams or whatever hell you're using. And then should it be paged? Is this high severity? Is this something particularly unique? Send a page out. And then there's the gravy, because you know that there's some kind of request that might take an extended period of time. If you're going to go run a query against your SIM to go look for more information about like other activity about that IP inside your environment, this is the like 4 preceding failed login attempts. This is the ability to go get that data, put it all together, and then dump it into that Jira ticket. So when your on-call person actually goes and takes a look at it, they'll be like, oh, great, the logs of everything that IP has been doing for the X number of hours will give you more context of what the activity is so they can go jump on this right away and then go act. Now, the assemble context, this is really the moneymaker of what it is. And there's a lot of implications that can come here, because this is the location where you have the ability to go and actually bring together the information that you're already aware of. The IP reputation, whether it's a good source, whether it's actually the device that's online at the time, whether the person's actually on call, build context of what that event is, and then be able to decide things on what severity should this be. Should we actually go and page something? Should we even alert on it? And then this is also where you can start bolting on other fun things like scoring mechanisms. Because the benefit to Tines is that this is basically all object-oriented programming. You can have stories tying into stories to go and recreate all these events based upon countless different types of incidents. And you can build this in an infinite number of ways, like infinite monkeys, infinite typewriters kind of concept. And this is also where you can tie in exception rules. If you know like that Bob is on call in this time and he might do some weird crap, then maybe an exception should be in place. But it's understanding what the risk is and what you're trying to accomplish. And I think it was Brent yesterday during his threat hunting talk that said that it's the knowing the tool sets and the data available to you that you can start gluing this information in. Because you can reach out. The benefit to this is that you can drop in curl commands, you can drop in API calls, and pull back data that will help enrich to increase or decrease the likelihood of something bad happening. And it's about understanding, getting confidence, and giving the meaningful data for someone to act on this quickly if they need to act. And so for in this circumstance, what we're seeing here is as basically the repeat of everything I was just saying and how it's accomplished, and I really didn't need the slide. It solves a lot of what you want to accomplish, and Tines isn't the only way to do this. I've seen, and I've built this using Lambdas, for example, inside of AWS. People have built this using shell scripts locally. It's just the premise of being able to enrich the data and try to do this stuff quickly, because the importance of trying to get the stuff out as fast as you possibly can so that engineer can act on it when they need to, and you can mitigate problems as fast as you can. And so what the output of this actually is doing the IP check. So this is making sure that that IP address is actually Bob's. He is actually online. It is coming from that device at the time, and the user's on call. And so if you have an on-call person who got that initial post and didn't know what the hell was going on, it's daunting. And at 3 a.m. when someone just got woken up because of pager duty, this is something that they don't want to deal with. You want to make this life a little easier. This is just simplifies that process a little bit more because they know where to act. And then they also have that second set of logs sitting with them. And so this is where we're sitting, is that we have a high confidence that it's the original user that was actually acting on it. It's a regular IP, the device is in use. We know the 3M activity and the hand bomb change is because they're part of an on-call rotation and they're dealing with an instant at a time. And this is all very easily accessible information from tons of APIs. And the rest of the logs are pre-prepared for near immediate consumption in Jira. And the big change that's happening in this process, this has gone from a security incident to a policy incident. Because Bob probably shouldn't be hand-bombing these changes. There might be a rhyme or reason behind it, but this means that you deal with a different type of sensitivity. Questions? 20 minutes.
Questions?